guys, today I'm going to talk about all of the books I read in March. I didn't have an amazing reading month in March, but it wasn't too bad either, and what I did read I really enjoyed. So let's just get straight into the books. The first book I finished off in March was A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J Maas. If you remember from the past few months, I read A Court of Mist and Fury with Amy, we did a buddy read, and then I jumped into A Court of Wings and Ruin in February and had to finish off the last like 100-200 pages. It does kind of feel like I didn't actually read this book this month because I read it so towards the start of the month and I did read most of the book in February, so it feels like a long time ago. I thought this was a really good conclusion to the series. I went into it with quite low expectations because I'd heard from a lot of people that it was very slow, not nearly as good as A Court of Mist and Fury, and just that it was kind of disappointing. I think those low expectations helped me to enjoy it a lot more. Like, I didn't really find it slow. I read especially the first half really quickly because I was so excited to see what would happen with the situation Feyre's left in at the end of A Court of Mist and Fury. So I read all of that part really quickly, and yeah, I just overall thought it was really well put together. I do feel like it leaves a lot of loose ends. Like, I know the series is carrying on with A Court of Frost and Starlight next month in May, but that's not even a proper book. It's like, well, it is, it's 300 pages or so, but I thought it was a full length book, so I'm kind of disappointed that for Sarah J Maas's standards it's basically a novella. And yeah, so many character arcs are just not really resolved. There's a lot of unanswered questions. Obviously the main overall story is resolved, but I just have a lot of questions. I hope they all get answered in that book, or she does like multiple books. But I really love these characters. I really fell in love with them over the course of the series, and I wouldn't say this book is a new favourite, but the series as a whole definitely is, and I gave this, I think, 4 stars. Next book I read in May also feels like a long time ago because I absolutely flew through it. I read it so quickly, and that is The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. I sort of had to read this month because I met Angie Thomas at the end of the month, so once that plan was sort of set in stone, I was like, okay, I have to read this book before I meet her. But honestly, I read it in one weekend. I couldn't put it down. It was really addictive. I honestly think it's one of the best books I've ever read. It's so well put together. The characters are really well fleshed out. I love the family dynamics. It was really nice to see such present parents and kind of well fleshed out parent characters in a YA book, because that is always something I really enjoy. I'm sure you've heard plenty about this book, but it is about a black teen that gets shot. He isn't doing anything, they're just pulled over by a policeman just because, and then the policeman shoots him dead because he thinks he's going to go for a gun or something, which is so not true. And it's kind of, it focuses on Star, who is there with her friend Khalil when that happens, and it's kind of her grief along with her awareness of kind of race issues and how they affect her on a day-to-day basis, or at least not her awareness, but how she discusses them in a lot of detail, like the fact her friends are actually quite racist towards her. And all just kind of, it's just so eye-opening, and I think everyone should read it. And I think people saying that put me off reading it for a little bit, because it kind of seemed like it was really hyped up and I was worried that if I didn't enjoy it, people would be annoyed at me. But it is really just, anybody will enjoy this book, I think. It's so well done, and I cannot wait to see the film, I think later this year. Also, I got this gorgeous special edition from Waterstones for the signing, which I have signed there. And this gets an obvious 5 stars. And the last full book I read in the month of March is Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. This book did actually take me a couple of weeks. At the start of the month I'd read The Hate You Give and the end of Court of Wings and Ruin really quickly, so I thought, oh, I'm gonna have such a good reading month. And this book did slow me down, but not because I didn't enjoy it. It is actually just sort of surprisingly long. I mean, it's about 400 pages and the font is teeny tiny, so it did just take a really long time. I split reading it with listening to the audiobook, and the audiobook was 17 hours long, which is quite a hefty audiobook. But I did do a full non-spoiler review, which I'll leave down below. There is a spoilery section at the end, but I give you plenty of warning of when that's coming. And yeah, overall this book was really good. I'm sure you've heard of it because of the recent film coming out, which I'm hoping to see this week. But I was in such a video game mood. I think I read this at the perfect time. I loved all the sort of discussion of video games and Dungeons and Dragons and kind of nerd culture, but it's also just very well put together. I did have my problems with it, especially around some representation issues, which I talk more about in my review, so I would check that out if you're interested in a bit more detail. I don't know how the film compares to that because I haven't seen it yet. But yeah, overall this was a really good book. I also gave this 4 stars. I was staying really true to my TBR in March, so I'd read all the books I was sort of planning on reading, and I had also wanted to read All That She Can See by Carrie Fletcher and I Am the Messenger, so I picked up All That She Can See, which I have here, and I've read 110 pages of it, so I'm about a third of the way through, approaching halfway through. And I don't know, this book has sort of slumped me, but I don't know if it slumped me or if I just got really into video games again at the end of the month, because I've been playing a lot of Mario and Rabbids, and I also just got Skyrim. And I've just had quite a busy social life in the last week of March because I booked it off work, and I've just been doing lots of fun things, which means I read less. So I am really enjoying this. It's very whimsical. I haven't really read anything like it so far this year, I don't think. The sort of whimsical magical realism side of it, about how the main character Cherry can see, I can't remember what they're called, they're basically like people's bad emotions. They sort of follow them around, things like guilt and depression. She sees them as actual figures behind people, and she realises that she can bake sort of happy feelings into baked goods, and she opens up a cake shop in like various cities and tries to almost help people with their problems, like they eat the cakes and then their grief shrinks and things like that. So it's a very like strange idea, and she's just met someone who can see, is the opposite, and can see like people's happy emotions. So yeah, that's where I'm at too. So I'm really enjoying it so far, but I think I'm wary because everyone says the second half gets really crazy and it gets kind of rubbish. So, but I'm going into it with low expectations, and I hope I do keep enjoying it, but it has kind of slumped me. So I'm hoping to just sort of finish this off quickly at the start of the month and then get into some new things. So these are all the books I read in March. Overall, it was a pretty good reading month. I definitely think I hit my 1,000 page mark that I always try to hit. I'll have to put the real number on the screen somewhere. But yeah, I was overall really happy, especially with Ready Player One and The Hate You Give, because those are two books on my list of 12 books I want to read in 2018. So to do two in 1 month was really good, and I really enjoyed both of them, as I was sort of expected to. So I'm glad that I finally read them, and they were really good. Let me know down below what books you read in March and what you really enjoyed. I'd love to know, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye!